We're going to call this meeting to order, and I'm going to ask that they close the ballot box. It's 10:30. I'm David Montoya, President of the Board. Some people will tell you that I'm arrogant, mean, nasty, fat, ugly. I know I'm not perfect. I also have some faults. I hope you've had a good morning, because we're going to change that for you. What you learned today here is going to be valuable in life. You'll use it forever. For instance, did you know that a goldfish can only remember something for 3 seconds? I asked my wife, I says, how do you suppose they figured that out? She says, well, chances are they took your memory and doubled it. As we get started here, I want to remind everybody that LPEA annual meeting is a formal business meeting. As a rural electric cooperative, we adhere to a series of bylaws which do indeed dictate the formal nature of this meeting. We will be following the agenda as per our bylaws, but we also want to hear from our members. Therefore, at the end of the required business meeting, we will open the floor to you, our members. Please hold your comments till then. A couple of things I want to point out. In the back of the room, there is a question box. If you want to write a question down and deposit it back there in that far corner, they have a box. Also, outside in the lobby, they had a box for thoughts about the meeting and such. So you can, if you want to use those, you're welcome to do that. The Charlie Flagg, who is the Skyute Casino General Manager, is here. As usual, anybody that's come to a function here at the Skyute Casino knows what a professional job they do. The meals are really wonderful, and you couldn't ask for better service. So with that, I'm going to ask Charlie to come up, and they're going to play the national anthem, and then he can also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Charlie, would you want to step up? Do you have anything to say?
Thank you, Dad. Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the Southern Ute Indian Tribe and the Skyute Casino Resort, we'd like to welcome you here today. I know y'all have had your annual meeting here for quite a number of years, and we really appreciate the ability to host it here. We hope you enjoy yourselves. We've got some fantastic food that's ready to be served here pretty quick. And I just want to take a moment to recognize our staff. We have our banquet staff, our AV staff that make sure all the sound works. We have, of course, all of our the banquet staff as well as our cooks in the kitchen that prepared this meal for you. So I just like to take a minute to thank them. Stand for the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight
Okay, now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Thank you. Okay, we've asked Eddie Box Jr. from the Southern Ute Tribe to perform a blessing for our meeting and a prayer.
Good morning. My name is Eddie Box Jr. My Indian name is Yellow Falcon, and this is my honey right behind me. We've been married 52 years, and her Indian name is Hummingbird Woman. I've been asked to give a prayer here, so we can all stand and just listen to the words. Creator, Grandfather, you go by many different names across the whole world. Today, now, I stand here and address you and ask blessings for all of us that are here today and our families that are back home. We ask blessings for them too. We live in a day that is very difficult at times to live. The many things that happen, the many things that come about. Our world is smaller. It appears that we all live on Mother Earth really close to each other. Everything affects everybody. So we come before you and ask blessings for LPEA, because this is an energy, this is something that we enjoy, Grandfather. Getting up in the morning, flipping the switch, and the lights come on. The coffee pot comes on. We are very grateful for this energy that flows. And we are blessed every day, whatever we need, wherever we go, of this energy. And we understand that many people are involved in this product. The people that put up the wire, the people that walk close to this energy, electricity. Blessings to them, so everything about this energy does not harm them. They take care of it and provide it to our homes. Give those people that are involved in it protection. Give them strength. Give them understanding so they can come back home every night to their families. All the people that are involved, Grandfather, bless each and every one of them. And also, Grandfather, we ask blessings for all the religions on Mother Earth, all the churches, synagogues, all the places and ceremonies that we as people go to. We believe in you, and we thank you for all what you have provided for us. All of this Grandfather, we thank you, Grandfather. Oh.
Thank you for that. I asked my wife this morning, Teresa, I said, so you coming to the meeting today? She says, so what's so special? I said, well, we're having a meeting today. She says, well, I can see you make a fool out of yourself every day. I don't need to come today. So we have 285 members here. It takes 50 for a quorum. So we do have our quorum. Bathrooms, I assume most people know they're out the end of the hallway to the right and to the right. The Roundup information booth will be available following the end of the meeting for anybody wanting to sign up that did not prior to the start of the meeting. We have our gifts that we give away, and those names will be drawn randomly, and the names will be up here on the screen at the end of the meeting and during lunch. So if you see your name on the screen, then you need to claim your prize. So I need to appoint an acting secretary. I'm going to appoint Karis Karistopoulos, who is our executive assistant, to be our secretary today. I'm going to appoint our attorney for LPEA, Shay Denning, to be the parliamentarian. Shay is our counsel for La Plata Electric. She attends all our board meetings and does our legal work for us. She is a member of the Maine's Bradford Chips Sheftel law firm. They have been representing LPEA for about 45 years now. And one of the senior partners who's no longer with us was Sam Maines. He was here for a great number of years, and he always had an attorney's joke. But I didn't bring any today, so you're lucky. The agenda was handed to you. I believe everyone received a copy coming in the door. If you didn't, you can pick one up from one of those two young ladies. I need a motion to approve the agenda. Been moved to approve the agenda. Is there a second? Been seconded. Any discussion on the agenda? If not, all of those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Also included in your packet is a copy of the 2017 annual meeting minutes. We can read those for you if you would like, or I would entertain a motion to approve and dispense with reading of the minutes. Okay, it's been moved to dispense and approve the minutes. Is there a second? Been seconded. Is there any discussion, any questions on those minutes? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You've received, there was an official notice for the meeting. I'm going to ask Shay to go over that with you.
Good morning. Pursuant to Article 2, Section 3 of the bylaws of LPEA, notice of the annual meeting was properly sent to all members not less than 45 days and not more than 10 days before the meeting. May I have a motion to waive reading of the notice of the meeting? Do I have a second? I have a motion to approve waiver of the notice, reading of the notice of the meeting. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Therefore, this is the official meeting of the members for 2018. In addition, Colorado law requires that if a ballot is submitted by mail, then a member is not allowed to vote or cast another ballot this morning at the annual meeting. And we've already closed ballots, and they are being counted at this time. Also, as allowed by Colorado law, LPEA has selected an independent third party to tabulate the ballots. This year, Tiffany Parker from the County Clerk and Recorder is handling that job for us. In addition, I need to go over the standing rules with you. The standing rules and procedures were provided in the packet that you received. I believe that they're on a front and back page, the second page. Is there anybody that hasn't received a copy and would like one? Note that the standing rules We'll also allow for membership comments. And please keep in mind that comments and questions will be restricted to 2 minutes and no more than 30 minutes for each topic. And we would ask that you avoid asking 2 questions until everybody is given a chance to go. I do need to have a motion to accept the standing rules and procedures as presented. May I have a motion to approve the standing rules? Thank you. Do I have a second? It's been moved and seconded to accept the standing rules and procedures. Are there any questions or comments? Please signify your vote by saying aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries.
Serving on the board, seems like they're all the time wanting to take your picture. I was complaining to Teresa one day, and I says, I don't know how come I never take any good pictures. She says, it's your face. So we're going to introduce, we have 4 elections this year, as most of you probably all know. I'm going to introduce all of those candidates. If you'd hold your applause till the end, I'd appreciate it. In District 1, which is Archuleta County, we have Bob Formwalt as the incumbent and Kristen Skehan. In District 2, which is primarily from 160 south around City of Durango to the west, is Kohler McGinnis is the incumbent. Jeff Mannix is a challenger. I haven't seen Jeff. I'm not sure that he's here. District 3 is the incumbent, which is City of Durango. Britt Bassett's the incumbent, and he's being challenged by Gene Fisher. In District 4, we have Karen Barger, which is, District 4 is north of Durango, Animas Valley, over to Vicedo and back down to Bayfield. Karen Barger is the incumbent. Tim Wheeler is the challenger. So I would ask, does any of the candidates like to say something to the membership? Okay, thank you. We have a large number of dignitaries here from the community, and we appreciate them all coming. We have been represented by the La Plata County Commissioners, the La Plata County Treasurer's Office, the City of Durango, some former board members, Tom Compton, Ken Fox, and Virginia Miller Kavanaugh. We also have here our former CEO, Greg Monroe, and his wife, Val, former Roundup directors that have served on the Roundup board in the prior, and we also have Lori Dixon from Forecore. Let's give them a hand for coming. So the other board members we have here, District 1, Mike Alley and Bob Lynch. District 2, Dan Huntington and myself. District 3, Doug Lyon, who's not in attendance today. Rachel Landis, who's also not here today. District 4, Jack Turner, who's not here, and Gwen Unger. A lot of volunteers here today. We have community volunteers. We have the Fiesta Royalty. We have the Fair Royalty. LPEA scholarship students are here helping today. And of course, the LPEA employees. For those of you that don't know that, the LPEA employees give up their Saturday. They volunteer their Saturday to come and help do all of this, and there is a lot of employees here that volunteer in their time today. And I want to say that I've heard this said about ranchers before, that they don't quit when they get tired, they quit when they're done. Well, I think that can be said about our employees at LPEA. When the power goes out, the job starts for them. Rain or snow, day or night, weekends and holidays, our crews are out restoring your power. And of course, if a problem involves the main transmission lines, Tri-State folks are out there. Let's show our appreciation to these people for keeping our lights on. So we also have, of course, our CEO, Mike Drayspring is here. From Tri-State, Miles Jensen, Lee Bowie, and Pat Bridges are here. From the Roundup Foundation Board, we have Brigham Wrinkle, the president, Cheryl Ayers, Mike Alley, Glenn Unger, Mike Drayspring, Melinda Volger, Werner Heber. I put together a few thoughts, and my thoughts aren't to try to convince anybody of anything. It's primarily to give you a taste of some of what's going on in our industry. For me, a lot of questions. I thought it would be interesting to do a little research on the history of electric generation. The first wind turbine used for production of electricity was in July 1887. In 1927, a factory in Minneapolis began producing wind turbine generators for farm use. In 1873, it was discovered that selenium had photoconductive potential. However, solar cells as we know them today are made with silicone. Therefore, some consider the true invention of solar panels to be tied to the creation of the silicone photovoltaic cell at Bell Labs in 1954. In 1800, Volta invented the first true battery. 1835, American Thomas Davenport is credited with building the first practical electric vehicle, which was a small locomotive. The science of atomic radiation developed from 1895 to 1945. The reactor generated the first electricity from nuclear energy in 1951. Hydroelectricity has been used to produce electricity for over 135 years. Electricity is a necessity, and it needs to be affordable. We have become addicted to electricity, so where do we go from here? We're using the same processes to generate electricity as we've had from, as you noticed, from 100 to 200 years. The technology is getting better all the time. There's a big difference between rooftop solar and utility scale solar. Rooftop solar is when a homeowner owns the panels, and utility scale power is a large system that Tri-State owns or buys the capacity from. There are reports that utility scale solar is getting cheaper than fossil fuel, but I've also been told that without all the subsidies that solar receives, that would not be the case. The hot topic today is storage, because there is no solar at night when it is cloudy or when the panels are covered with snow. So there is a push to develop an affordable battery or other means in which to store energy when the sun does shine. My personal experience is we have to use solar on our ranch for water wells to pump water to our cattle. Solar is not dependable. This winter there were enough cloudy days we had to haul water to supplement the solar. The systems are expensive and we had to maintain them. Solar panels don't last forever. In contrast, we have an electric well on a timer, and there's always water there, and it costs us between $7 and $20 a month maximum. If I had access to electricity, all of them, I would not use my time and money on solar, but then I don't receive subsidies because I'm not connected to the grid. Personally, I like turning my switch on and shazam, the lights come on. If it doesn't, I call an electric company and they fix it. I have a life. I don't need to worry about maintaining solar panels and batteries. Disposing of spent panels and batteries will be a problem in the future. How many members can afford to install their own panels and batteries? What is the value of convenience? That's one of the questions I ask myself. What is the value of convenience to just let LPEA furnish our electricity? What does the future hold? Technology is changing how electricity can be produced, but can we really know what the future will deal us? The cost of wind and solar has dropped dramatically in the last few years, but what happens when the subsidies dry up? Nuclear is getting cleaner and safer. Fossil fuel plants are still competitively priced and getting cleaner. If electric cars catch on, then there will be a large demand for electricity. All these things will determine what direction Tri-State and LPEA will move in the future. I have confidence in the LPEA staff making good choices if the board will not needlessly interfere. LPEA and Tri-State have subsidized local solar for several years. LPEA members are currently subsidizing our net metering solar customers to the tune of about $1 million a year. If solar is comparable to fossil fuel, then I think it's time our electric resources are cost-based. LPA's mission statement states, LPA provides its members safe, reliable electricity at the lowest reasonable cost while being environmentally responsible. If solar is comparable to fossil fuel, then I think it's time all our electric resources are cost-based. Every member needs to start paying their fair share for standby power, backup power, use of LPA's facilities, and maintenance. Let's level the playing field. It's not fair that our members subsidize systems so that others can get free power. LPEA is a distribution company, and we need to act like it. These are my thoughts, no one else's. My intent is to merely give everyone here something to think about. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I say let's proceed slowly. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Brigham Wrinkle, the Roundup president.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. I am Brigham Wrinkle. I'm the executive director of the Community Foundation serving Southwest Colorado. I also serve as the board president for the Roundup Foundation. I work with nonprofits in Southwest Colorado every day to make the sector stronger and more sustainable. The Community Foundation brings in professional development, workshops, and capacity building opportunities, which just is a fancy way to say we bring in resources that help nonprofits get the job done. I can assure you that Roundup is a lifeline for both new and established nonprofits alike. Roundup supports more than 60 to 80 nonprofits each year. In turn, that helps thousands of our LPA members. Let me take a minute to refresh your memory about La Plata Electric Association's Roundup Foundation. Roundup is a community service program organized by La Plata Electric Association and funded by LPA members. Our members sign up to round up their electric bills to the next highest dollars. We have about 40% of our potential meters signed up. We have a long way to go. If you don't already round up, please make the move to round up today. You can raise to the nearest dollar with Roundup or add a few bucks a month and do the Roundup Plus program. We have an informational table in the ballroom, right? Look for the LPA Roundup flag they're waving. And it just takes a minute. The beauty of the program is its simplicity. Since Roundup's beginning in 1996, the fund has given more than $1.2 million to hundreds of nonprofits in our service area. The foundation's first grant was $1,000 to Manna. As you will see in this video I'm going to show you in just a minute, we are still a strong partner with Manna and many other nonprofits in the community. Individually, the contributions are small, and over time, those pennies really add up. I'd like to take a minute now to share with you a sneak peek of our new video that shows how LPA Roundup impacts our community.
My name is Kathy Tonneson. I'm the Executive Director of MANA.
And my name is Casey Curry. I'm the Director for Dancing Spirit Community Arts Center.
So hi, I'm Anita Carpenter. I'm with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Southwest Colorado.
Hi, I'm Sundia Tillotson. I'm the Executive Director with the Garden Project.
Hi, my name is Robert Wasserman. I'm Independent Living Specialist for Southwest Center for Independence.
Hi, I'm Katie Popinski. I'm the Director with La Plata Youth Services.
So I am Dr. Carol Nasrallah. We're currently at the Thrive Clinic in Pagosa Springs, Colorado.
Seeds of Learning is a standalone nonprofit early care and education center.
I got a phone call one day that, they're putting a for sale sign on the Lions Hall. We didn't own the building at the time.
LPEA has been a supporter of ours for years and years.
We are incredibly grateful for LPEA and the Roundup Fund because this year we were able to build an outdoor amphitheater at our community garden.
Most of the stuff in this classroom has been purchased by grants from La Plata Electric.
And through, we teach kids for after-school arts or summer arts programs.
And we got the new roof done, and the last money we got from that was LPEA Roundup this year. So they've helped us 3 times.
We are definitely in need of finances just to keep the program going.
The La Plata Electric Association Roundup funds have also just helped us in general with our one-on-one programs in the community. So we have been a fortunate recipient for a number of years and are extremely grateful.
Everybody, the Roundup Foundation, LPEA, is a fantastic, fantastic organization.
Thank you, LPEA, and the whole community of Durango for supporting such a great project.
We'd very much like to thank the community for the support we get at MANA. We couldn't do what we do for people without the help of the community. So thank you so much.
I mean, if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't have the van outfitted the way that we do. And, you know, you allow us to offer services to the community that the community really needs.
So we strongly encourage you to round up and give a few extra cents on every bill, and it helps the community in a tremendous way.
So the Roundup program is an incredible program that people can participate in. I don't think a lot of people know about the program necessarily. I participate as an individual member of the community, and our organization also participates. So it's, you know, once a month you're rounding up your bill, and all of that funding pools together to support so many initiatives.
Pocket change for positive change, a significant impact from something so simple. At its core, Roundup is a community service program organized through La Plata Electric and funded by LPEA members. It derives its funding when members sign up to round up their electric bills each month to the next higher dollar. Roundup has donated since its formation more than $1.1 million in local grants to hundreds of nonprofit agencies and organizations in Archuleta and La Plata counties.
So I just want to spend a minute. We do want to emphasize that the Roundup Foundation supports all organizations, including arts, early childhood, education, health and human services, seniors, veterans, and youth programs. Thank you for your time this morning, and don't forget to round up. If you already round up, think about adding a buck or two and do our Roundup Plus program. Have a great morning.
Thank you. The other day I was walking with Teresa, and she said, "Look at that dog with one eye." I said, "Where?" Sometimes it takes a little while. Next we have our CEO, Mike Drayspring, who is on his 4th year, has some comments. Mike?
Good morning. Thank you guys for being here today. Thanks. I always like to start out with the things for which I'm really grateful, and I just want to mention several and give you an opportunity to see what I see in terms of, impact. I first want to thank my wife, Sabra, who is here, and this year we'll have been married 39 years, not anywhere close to Eddie Box Jr., but we're working on that. But she's been the biggest supporter and encourager for me in my life, and I very much have appreciated her support in my work. Second group I'd like to thank you guys, first of all, for taking your time to be here and for being engaged in your cooperative. You make your co-op better when you participate like this in the governance of your cooperative. Third group I'd like to thank are the employees and the volunteers in our organization, and a lot of them have already been introduced, but they're an amazing and inspiring group to work with. The employees and the volunteers, like on the Roundup board, they're very committed to serving you. And it matters to them that they do a good job with that, and I'm just so grateful for their employees. The last group I want to recognize, and we do this every year, we could not have, if we didn't have the freedom to form a cooperative form of business, we wouldn't have this as an option. But in this country, we do have the freedom to do that, and those freedoms come with a price, and that price is typically paid by people that serve our country in the military. So I want to take a minute. If you have ever served in our country's military, would you stand and give us an opportunity to thank you? Would you please stand? share a couple of slides with you. Drew's gonna, there we go. Drew is my official clicker. They don't let CEOs have things with a button on them. So I've got Drew to help me with this. But we're incredibly committed to our community. You've already heard a little bit about, but I want to tell you a little bit about what our employees have done this last year. They participated in something called Cheeriodicals, and at our employee annual meeting, which was actually in this room back in January, we put together gift boxes for people in the hospitals in both Archuleta and La Plata County. And these were things that were given to people who had long stays in the hospital, veterans, and this was a way to try to touch and give back. And I can't tell you how much feedback we've gotten from the local hospitals of what that meant to the people that received those things. We also had people participating. This last year, I don't know how many years it's been in Archuleta County, but our operations group in Pagosa Springs do something called Fill the Bucket, and they take food that is volunteered and brought in and use it for the local pantry and food bank. That's something that our employees started. That wasn't necessarily something LPEA started. We also had the Giving Tree this year. We had our employees in La Plata County and Durango's office decide that they wanted to try to impact people with need, and so they started the Giving Tree. And again, this was not a La Plata Electric initiative. These are things that our employees have done to try to impact our community. And that's one of the reasons why they're so inspiring and they're so connected to you guys and our community. Drew, let's go to the next slide. I want to talk about several things today. One of them is our reliability metrics. This is my 5th co-op. I've never seen anything that's a bigger challenge from a terrain standpoint and really kind of a weather standpoint, but we are fairly pleased with the performance. Now, there's 2 metrics I want to share with you. One is called SAIDI, System Average Interruption Duration. Just focus on the D, duration, length of time, all right? So this tells us, what's kind of the average time over the year for the length of outages we've had. And you can see that over on the left-hand side of this graph, and this is in minutes, all right? So this is minutes per year, and this represents the last 5 years. And we saw a slight increase this last year. Now the next part that Drew's this is SAIFI, System Average Interruption Frequency. So not how much in time, but how many outages do we have, during the year. And you can see when you look, somewhere between 1 and 2, and again in 2017 we saw a little bit of an increase. Now what we do with that data is we compare ourselves with a peer group, with other co-ops throughout the United States. So the next thing that Drew's going to fold in here is how all the co-ops in the U.S. perform. And you can see that that's the average for all co-ops in the U.S. So although I feel pretty good about that, that's never what we rely on. We're constantly looking for the ways that we can improve in terms of reliability, but that's a direct reflection of what your employees are doing for you. Next slide, Drew. So one of the things that we're having to deal with are just increases in technology. And sometimes those are called disruptors. We see those as opportunities. And these are some of the things that are actually happening. We're seeing utility scale solar decline fairly aggressively in price. That's something that we not only would take advantage of in the future, but we see that Tri-State is starting to connect with more utility scale solar as those prices are coming down. And it's really important for us at LPEA to do those projects that lower our incremental cost of electricity. We're seeing smarter photovoltaic systems. We're seeing batteries. We have 2 members that have battery systems, one in a home, one at the Socorro Living Center in Pagosa. The one who has the battery in their home, they are trying to arbitrage the price and our time of use rate between on-peak and off-peak. I had somebody say, well, you don't want them to do that. And we said, absolutely we do. That's exactly what we want to see. We want to see people that are trying to impact when they buy power. And so we're starting to see battery systems come into the retail part of our business and being used by our members. And we're monitoring that to see how successful that can be in electric vehicles. Some of you may know that Nissan sold 50 electric vehicles in Durango last year. So we're seeing an increase in demand for electric vehicles, and I'm going to talk about that in a little more detail. But one of the things that we're seeing a tremendous explosion in is distribution automation and the smart grid, what's called the smart grid. And that involves everything from reclosers, capacitors, inverters, new types of transformers that adjust for voltage, in real time. They're expensive, but LPEA has historically deployed a lot of that. And Dave Gephardt, who just retired here last week, Dave, you got to raise your hand. Dave has been one of the engineers who's done a lot of that design with our SCADA system and other things and impacted our grid. But sometimes I hear people say, we want to know how up to date our grid is. LPEA has one of the most aggressively developed distribution automation programs in the country, and I've seen other co-ops work for them, and I know. Next slide. So this is some of the local renewable and distributed generation that we currently have. We have 4 community solar gardens. We have the Lemon Dam, a waste heat recovery, and these are the rest of the projects. The 2 that I really want to focus on are down at the bottom, the street lights. One of the things that we're doing in Durango this year is we're converting a lot of the high pressure sodium, and there may still be some mercury vapor lights. I don't know if there are or not, but I think there are. But all of those are going to be converted to LED. And I don't know, you can go on our website and actually see a drone picture of LED lights at night. And most of what has been deployed is around North City Market in Durango. And you're going to see all of Durango converted. But you can look and see the difference in high pressure sodium lighting and LED, and it is dramatically reducing our kilowatt hours. So it's really in part an energy efficiency initiative, not just a lighting security initiative. And then we've started some electric vehicle charging stations. We have some at our office in Durango. We have a fast charging station that's going in by Albertsons in Durango. We're also working to develop a charging station in Pagosa Springs. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about electric vehicles in just a minute. So what you're seeing here is a graph of our day. So if you look down at the bottom, what you're seeing is 24 hours, of a period. And the 2 pink bars represent our on-peak periods. Our first on-peak period starts at 6 a.m. in the morning, goes to 9 a.m., all right? Our second peak period starts at 5 p.m. and goes to 10 p.m. at night. And that is when we peak. We're almost always going to peak sometime during those bars during the course of a day. Now, what you see in the gold line over that, that's our standard rate that most of our members are on. The blue line is the rate my wife and I are on, and that's a lot of members. We have several thousand members on our time of use rate. But what you're seeing are their load profiles for those entire groups over that day. And what you would probably say if I were to ask this question of you, what does that tell you? And that's that people respond to price, all right? So on-peak prices for LPEA's time of use rate around 23 cents kilowatt hour. The off-peak is a little under 6 cents. So what we're trying to do is encourage people to move their power according to the time of day when power, and you're going to see more of this in the future. The future of electricity is going to have a huge timing influence in terms of pricing. And so this is one of the things that we're really encouraging, but people are recognizing savings on their electric bill by taking advantage of the time of use rate, and I would encourage you to do that too. Drew, next slide. Give you 5 reasons why we think electric vehicles, and this is somewhat maybe controversial, that I have some members who say, I don't want an electric vehicle, and we're fine with that. But a year ago, I would have said this differently. A year ago, I did not see how fast this was going to evolve into something for demand. We're seeing a lot of demand for this, but these are the reasons why we think you're going to see additional demand. Number one, the operating cost. What we're seeing is the EVs can cost 80% less to drive. Number 2, convenience. Most of the charging for electric vehicles is done at home, not just in our service territory, but throughout the U.S. Number 3, the Colorado Energy Office. If you look in the lower left-hand part of this screen, you see a map. These are the location of charging stations right now in just the state of Colorado. And you're going to start to see the proliferation and expansion of additional electric charging for electric vehicles. Number 4, model availability. And every one of these car manufacturers have announced multiple grids. In some cases, more than a dozen different models for one manufacturer. So there is a tremendous expansion that's coming in the selection of what your options could be for an electric vehicle. And number 5, EVs today have ranges over 200 miles. Now, last year we would have been talking about range anxiety. In other words, how far can, if it was 80 miles or something like that, that's not a long-distance trip car for Southwest Colorado, right? And so, one of the things that we're seeing are battery manufacturers beginning to expand the number of miles that they can drive. And the reason that's significant, for us is because we think that that's really kind of the chief barrier. It's not just because people can charge these at home. We see the range anxiety as having been more of a significant issue. This year in February, some of the directors and I went to a meeting in Denver where a professor from Colorado State University was talking, and he was talking about what they're doing with lithium-ion battery technology, where they're putting devices within the chemicals that when a battery reaches its thermal limit, because thermal limits have been a problem with some battery storage capability, that they're now developing things within the battery that shut the battery down once it reaches its thermal limit. So the technology is evolving almost on an exponential scale, and we think that that is going to be very significant. But those are the 5 reasons that we think we'll see additional EV use within our area. Now, I'm sorry for my voice. This is a Durango Herald front page that was from April 18th. So one of the things you're probably hearing about is what this article was written about, which is the buyout of our contract, our wholesale contract with Tri-State. And one of the things that we've been talking about for some time is what is the value of our contract. So I want to just cover several things. I'm not going to come close to discussing all of the details that you would need to know about this. There's a lot of details for us to work through and figure out. But I want to try to answer some basic questions: when, what, and why. And I'm going to start with when first. There is no deadline for LPEA as to when or if there's going to be a decision to buy out of the contract. All right, that's the first thing that you need to know. This decision won't get rushed. There's a tremendous amount of research, analysis, and dialogue that has to happen for us to get to the point. Now, the next one is what? We recognize that Tri-State is a $4.6 billion asset company. They have a tremendous amount of money invested in generation assets. And one of the things that we want to pay attention to is what our investment is in that. That investment is there, and it's designed to meet, our load requirements. So any thought about buying out of that, is going to be a financial impact on us. We want to make sure that we know what that financial impact is. It's a substantial and significant financial decision. Our board is well aware of that. We've had those discussions. There's just a lot of work for us to get to the point of deciding what exactly is that financial impact and what do we do to mitigate that. And then, why? Why would you look at this? And I'm going to tell you that there's 2 predominant issues that I think are driving this dialogue. One of them is local renewable generation. One of the things that's pretty cool for me is when I look and I see and I talk to members, I don't talk to members just from one political party. I get a full spectrum of comments and questions, and it doesn't matter to me who that is or what party they come from. For me, one thing I can tell you is that our members across the board like to see local renewable generation developed within our service territory. And so there have been some limits by Tri-State, and there's some misinformation that you have. First of all, although we have the allowance for 5% in our contract with Tri-State, and we'd like to see additional flexibility, we've gone to them and asked for additional, and there's other issues I won't go into as to why so far Tri-State has decided not to do that. That's not our only option. We have the ability to do other local renewable projects. But here's the key thing for you to keep in mind. They're going to have to be at a price that dramatically lowers our incremental cost of electricity. And I bet we would all agree that's something that we need to do. So when I say that these are 2 of the issues, those are the 2 things that are driving this debate and this dialogue. And this is a good thing for us to be talking about this. But I want you to know, we've got a lot of work to do to figure out what is the ultimate impact as a result of a decision like this. Didn't like necessarily that the Durango Herald made this almost our election a referendum on the issue of the contract. It's not. And there are a lot more information they should have gotten from me and I think some other people before they wrote articles like this, but that's the free press and I respect that. I just want you to know that you're not going to get all of the accurate information that you need. We're going to try to put more information on our website. In this next slide, one of the things that I want to mention is you can go out on our website, and the board asked me this last year, since our contract goes to 2050, what's your vision, as a CEO for us? Well, I put together a PowerPoint presentation, gave it to them in October of last year to try to address some of these issues. You can see that. You can go out on our website and see the information of what I put in front of the board that we need to consider going forward for a long period of time. One of the other things the board did, they established a long-term strategies committee. And this committee has already met, I think 7 times, correct me if I've got that wrong, but they've met 7 times, and they're studying a variety of issues, including, research on load growth, what the bulk power market is going to do. That's a critical issue. There's really significant issues that we have to understand that could potentially drive volatility of our price of electricity if we bought out of the market, or if we bought out of Tri-State and we're dependent on the market. We need to understand what those risks are and what our options and costs are to mitigate that. And the results of the committee is going to be presented to the board at the June board meeting next month. And you're welcome to come and participate in that. And I hope you will. One of the things that I'm doing is I've created a model, a financial model, to tell the board what the value is. The model is really only half done. What I've done is looked at the value of the contract from Tri-State's perspective. That's one of the things that we have to do. The other part of the model that I haven't completed is the value from LPEA's perspective. And there are a lot of things that we've got to work through to define that. So that is a critical component in terms of looking at the decision of whether or not you buy out of a contract like with our wholesale power supplier. And the last thing we're going to do is update our strategic plan. Out of this long-term strategies committee, out of my vision, there are going to be things that we're putting together that the board's going to process and decide how we move forward, and we expect to be able to establish what those things are by the end of the 3rd quarter of this year. Drew, next slide. So that is all that I have. I hope that you will stay around if you have questions during the Q&A to ask that, but also recognize I'm available to talk to you anytime. Anytime that you have a question. I had members come by my office this week, and we spent several hours together talking about issues that were important to them. We welcome having that dialogue with you. Thank you again for being here.
I'm going to divert from the agenda a little bit and just switch some speakers around. I'm going to ask our attorney, Shay Denning, to give her report next, please.
Thank you, President Montoya. One of the things that we do as the attorney is that we try to put out the fires whenever they show up, and we've got a little fire that I need to go put out. So thank you for moving me up in the agenda. It has been a real privilege to be able to work with LPEA this last year. You have a really excellent group of staff that work very hard for the cooperative, and a very engaged and interested board, and so it's quite a privilege to be a small part of that process. With all of the forward-looking vision that the board and the staff are trying to do and trying to move the organization into the future, a lot of our work this year has been to try to position the board to be able to do that from a legal perspective. And so we've spent a great deal of time working to update the governance documents for both the board and the organization. I think that the entire board will join me in a sigh of relief that we're very close to being done with that process. The other thing that we have done is that we worked on updating the bylaws and making that document work better for the future. We know that process is never really done, and so I expect, board, that this next year will also include a lot more work on refining and continuing to work on those documents. Another project that we have helped LPEA with is to assist in setting up agreements to allow members to more effectively install solar on their properties. A lot of times it's difficult for members to install solar due to size and system limitations, and the staff has gotten really creative in trying to figure out ways to make that work. And we've been able to help in that process by putting together agreements so that it's doable and workable for people who want to put solar on their properties. And also something that I want to update everyone on, because I reported on it last year, is that I'm disappointed to announce that FERC is still not ruled on Tri-State's motion to reconsider that's been pending up there for some time. If you'll recall in my report from last year, Tri-State petitioned FERC for approval of amendments to one of their board policies. It's Tri-State Board Policy 101. And it would have allowed them to recover their unavoided cost when qualified facilities hook onto the system. And a qualified facility is a company that generates renewable energy and has filled out paperwork with FERC to be recognized as the facility. In that case, Tri-State was denied their request, and they filed a motion for rehearing, and FERC decided to go ahead and grant that motion for a rehearing, or take up that motion for rehearing. And each month, I'm disappointed to announce to the board that there has been no change in that, and there hasn't been a ruling. I'm disappointed to announce that they still haven't taken that up, so we don't have the clarity that we were hoping to have, so that we would be able to move forward in the future with more clarity on how that would work. We continue to monitor that and hope that a decision will come down soon, so that we know so that we can make plans for the future and what a future like that would hold. Now, the other thing that I would encourage everyone to do is to continue to be involved in the cooperative. As Mike mentioned, member involvement is something that is critical and necessary for the organization. And in order to do that, I would also encourage you to take a look at those governance documents that we've worked so hard to modify and update. One of those would be the bylaws, and the other is the policies. And if the bylaw amendments pass, we're going to have new documents, and they're also going to always be on the website and very easy to find if you have questions. I would encourage everybody to take some time to read through that, to understand how the organization is managed, how the organization is governed, so that you can be more effective in your involvement with the cooperative, because that's what makes it better. The other thing that you can do is to continue to take an active interest in the meetings at the board and show up and have your voices heard. In order to figure out what's going on and know when you should or shouldn't show up, when it's important to you to show up, go ahead and go on the website and read through the agendas of the upcoming board meetings. They're posted 10 days in advance so that you can go through them and make sure you know what's going on. And if you're not able to come, you can also go and read the minutes of all of the board meetings so that you know what happened. And so I would encourage all of you to check out the website and to continue to take an active interest in the organization. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to speak with you today, and I would like to thank the board and LPEA staff for allowing me to be part of this organization. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll go back to the LPEA financial report, which is given by Doug Lyon via video, because it's my understanding that Doug took some of his class to Germany. I'm not sure I got that 100% right. Is that right, Kohler? You're looking at me like I was wrong.
Good morning. My name is Doug Lyon, and I'm the treasurer of the La Plata Electric Association Board of Directors. The reason you're viewing this virtual presentation is because I am away on business as part of my position as a professor of business at Fort Lewis College. I have several slides to show you just quickly today. We're going to talk about the financial performance of our cooperative over the past year. The big and really very, very good news is that we have met all of our financial obligations for the year. We have a clean audit report from our auditors, BKD. That's a big deal. As you know, our business is very capital intensive. Our total assets, which are in large measure the physical assets associated with the distribution of electricity, have floated between $300 million and $320 million over the last 5 years. This is an indication that the financial position of the cooperative remains very stable and strong. The finance team at LPEA did a wonderful job this year refinancing approximately $100 million worth of debt. In addition to saving about $6.5 million in interest expense over the life of the loans, the team also eliminated a lot of red tape associated with borrowing from our previous lender. The finance team has also worked to ensure that our members' equity level on the balance sheet continues to be stable and, very, very importantly, provides the appropriate mix of debt and equity that we use to finance our operations. I am very, very pleased to say that your electric cooperative in 2017 returned $4.5 million to the membership in the form of retired capital credits. So this takes the total amount of money that LPEA has returned to the members over the lifetime of the organization to more than $64 million. Our cooperative members continue to be increasingly efficient with their energy usage. And so we've seen a decline in the total amount of electricity sold over the last 5 years. And that's even in the face of regional economic growth. And so that really indicates that our membership is doing a great job using electricity efficiently. And one more point about this slide. Even in the face of the declining electricity sales, which we anticipated, the financial position of LPEA remains very stable and strong. Now, as you may know, La Plata Electric Association is exempt from federal income taxes. However, we are pleased to be a strong partner with both La Plata County and Archuleta County. We pay significant property taxes to both of those counties. As you can see, we paid more than $800,000 in property tax to La Plata County last year and approximately $250,000 to Archuleta County. Thank you very, very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your annual meeting.
I don't know how many of you know Doug, but almost didn't recognize him with a tie on and a haircut. Next, we have Colorado Rural Electric Association report is Karen Barger, LPEA's representative to the CREA board. Karen?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen Barger from District 4 and the representative from the board to CREA. CREA is a statewide organization and it provides lots of services, gives us the opportunity to act as a bigger organization while still keeping local control. I want to touch today on a couple of the four of the services that CREA provides for us. We have legislative support, communication services, safety and regulatory training, and educational programs. With legislative support, there's a team in Denver that we work closely with through the office at CREA that tracks both state and national legislative efforts. During the legislative sessions, and we get weekly information through trackers that keeps us up to date with everything that's going on, both at the state and national level. There's also opportunities to personally visit with both the state and national legislators, and it gives us the opportunity to have a one-on-one, just to let everyone know what's concerned for us. And communication services, most of it's headed by Mona Neely. It's just the Colorado Country Life magazine that you get is just one tiny portion of all the PR efforts that the team at CREA has. Many of the Colorado Country Life awards that you see on the screen this year, where there were 4, and the number 5 award up there, the best overall newsletter content. So we swept the category this year, and I really want to thank Indiana Reed for her hard work on all of that. In safety and regulatory training, La Plata Electric participates in the Rural Electric Safety Achievement Program, or RESAP. So this is a 3-year formal assessment program related to the safety of the entire organization. There are spot inspections, and then that feedback comes to the cooperative so that you can continue to stay on top of being safe. Also, just deployed this year, there is a near-miss online reporting tool. So linemen can sign in to this website and report near misses, and then it's a learning opportunity to avoid any other safety issues in the future. For the educational programs, CREA provides lots of training courses for both directors and employees. As far as cooperative employees, CRA has had over 600 employees participate in multiple events in 2017, and 3 of those classes were held at LPEA. For director education, CRA brings director education classes to Colorado, and last year the CRA saved Colorado co-ops just over $101,000 in registration fees. So by having those locally, it's less of a burden to all the co-ops for the directors to become more educated. There's also the Energy Innovation Summit in the fall. This is open to all industry stakeholders and making an excellent forum for co-op directors to interact with others within the industry. And I think that we've also had some members or students from Pagosa Springs High School attending as well, so it's really fun to see those folks up there. There's a Washington, D.C. tour and youth tour, or youth leadership camp. For the idea behind these is that it helps students understand the importance of getting involved in your community and exploring what the different levels of governance are. La Plata Electric is sending 5 students and a chaperone to this year's youth tour. Students attending the youth leadership camp will be learning life skills and gaining better understanding of electric co-op programs. 4 students from La Plata will be attending this year for the camp in 2018. And really exciting, the NRECA International Project. For the first time, CRA is joining other co-ops across the country in electrifying villages in Guatemala. Colorado is partnering with Oklahoma to send a line crew to work with the local utility to bring electricity to 2 villages. Line workers interested in participating in the project went through an interview process, and one of the linemen, Baker McConley, has been selected as an alternate for the project. And that wraps it up. Thank you.
Okay, next we have the Tri-State G&T report, going to be given by Kohler McGinnis, LPEA's representative on the Tri-State Board.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Kohler McInnes, and I have had the privilege of serving on the Tri-State Board for the past year. And one of the questions I get, a common question I get when I talk to LPEA members, is what and who is Tri-State, or how are they doing? Well, Tri-State is a generation and transmission cooperative. We usually refer to it as our G&T, and it provides a minimum of 95% of the wholesale electricity to LPEA, who then turns around and distributes that to all of you. So Tri-State their members are 43 different co-ops, and although it is called Tri-State, the name Tri-State, its operating region is actually in 4 states, and that is Wyoming, New Mexico, Nebraska, and Colorado. LPEA is one of the 43 members, and LPEA is the 3rd highest purchaser of this wholesale electricity in the Tri-State family. Tri-State has a mixed portfolio of generations, which include hydro, wind, coal, solar, and gas. They also have 5,500 miles of transmission lines. So these generation units are located throughout the 4 different states, and these transmission lines somewhat interconnect the generation units, but they also transmit the power from the generation spot to the delivery points of all of their members in the Tri-State family. Tri-State also has over 1,500 employees, of which 18 of them live here in Southwest Colorado. Those 43 members, they service over 1 million people with their electric services. So how is Tri-State doing? Well, in 2017, Tri-State's revenues were $1.4 billion, and they saw their margins at just under $62 million for 2017. So both the margins and the revenues were increased over 2016. At the same time, the operating expenses stayed level for the last 3 years. So with this combination of activities and a few other things, that enabled Tri-State to not have to increase their rates for 2018. And this is important for all of you. If you take a look at LPEA's profit and loss statement for 2017, and you look under expenses, you'll see the biggest expense by far is cost of purchased power. And for 2017, that was $71 million. Anytime that you change that account there, it has the potential to directly affect your electric bill. Tri-State also is in the financial position that it was able to increase its patronage capital credit refunds to $20 million. And that was an increase from $10 million previously. Again, this is something that's very important for all of you, because when LPEA receives its portion of that $20 million, they then turn around and distribute to all of its members, you. So how's about renewables? Today, the power that is consumed by Tri-State's members is 30% renewable. The Tri-State Board and staff continue to work and see what they can do to add additional renewable energy. And with the strength that Tri-State has on its balance sheet, with the price of solar coming down and the price of wind coming down, Tri-State can add more renewable energy without affecting reliability and affordability. It is projected by the end of this year, the end of 2018, that renewable will be at 33%. So what's it look like going forward? Well, the figures coming in year to date on 2018 are ahead of budget. So we're starting out with a very strong year. Tri-State projects that they will keep their rates stable for the next 4 to 5 years. There are many, many challenges with today and tomorrow's technology. And there's also challenges within the Tri-State family. You've heard some of it today. Some of the members within the Tri-State family would like a little more freedom with their contract with Tri-State. I am convinced that Tri-State Board and the staff, working with Tri-State's members, will seek to find a solution that will be balanced and fair for all of its members. They're also going to position themselves to where they can take advantage of any opportunity put in front of them. Well, folks, I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. For all you moms, happy Mother's Day to you, and thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Kohler. I believe we're ready for unfinished business. Now, this is. I'm asking if there's any unfinished business. This is not the point for questions. The questions will be here for under new business. So, does anybody have any unfinished business from last year that we needed to follow up on? If not, Tiffany.
Hello, everybody. Well, first of all, as always, thank you to LPEA for entrusting me with the election, and for my election judges, my staff, the election supervisory committee. It's been a great experience as always. So let me just get off to reading these votes. We had a total ballot cast of 8,744. For District 1, Bob Formwalt received 796 votes. Kirsten Skehan, 1,109. So the director elected for District 1 is Kirsten. District 2, Jeffrey Mannix received 1,074 votes. Kohler McInnes, 1,292. Kohler McInnes, for director elected for District 2. District 3, Britt Bassett received 1,452 votes. Jean Fisher, 678. Director elected for District 3, Britt Bassett. District 4, we have gone into a margin of less than 1%. So at this time, I will not be releasing results. We will be conducting a recount beginning 9 a.m. on Monday morning. Ballot issue number 1, yes votes, 7,107. No votes, 677. Ballot issue number 2, yes votes, 7,373. No votes, 467. Ballot issue 3, yes votes, 5,705. No votes, 2,090. Ballot issue number 4, yes votes, 7,470. No votes, 370. Ballot issue number 5, yes votes, 7,291. No votes, 499. Ballot issue number 6, yes votes, 7,225. No votes, 572. Ballot issue 7, yes votes, 7,422. No votes, 391. Ballot issue number 8, yes votes, 7,299. No votes, 464. Ballot issue number 9, yes votes, 7,324. No votes, 452. Ballot issue number 10, yes votes, 7,267. No votes, 483. So that puts all your ballot questions as passed. That's the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. It's going to be a long weekend. The other day I was burning some weeds and the wind came up and kind of got it out of control, so I called the fire department and explained my situation. Fire chief asked me, how do we get there? I said, well, I was hoping you had a fire engine. I'm about to run out of bad jokes, so. Okay, now we're ready for new business. Is there any new business? Because if not, then I'm going to ask for questions from the floor. I assume there is a microphone around here someplace.
I'm Lori Costello. Can you hear me? And I've had multiple interactions with the board and with Mike about the health effects of fossil fuel-derived electricity, and noticed in the recent magazine that the word safe has been removed from describing our electricity, and wondered why that was done.
I wasn't aware of that. My guess is that that was a mistake if it was removed, but let me get some additional information and I'll try to answer that a little bit later.
My name's Lou Webb. This isn't really as much of a question as it is more of a comment. This concerns the board's policy number 117 as it concerns disclosures of cooperative information. And you go towards the back, and this is something that all the candidates sign as they become a candidate for the board. Talks about, excuse me, I got to get my glasses. Confidential information. Recipient agrees to use the confidential information only for the purposes set forth in the request for information. The recipient shall otherwise maintain all of the confidential information in strict confidence and shall not directly or indirectly disclose, disseminate, use for the benefit of themselves or any third parties, or otherwise publish the confidential information. It also talks about that they need to, after the recipient is finished using the confidential information, agrees to return the applicable documents and make sure that they are permanently destroyed by anybody else that received them. This is about being truthful and respectful and honorable. We have cultural phrases these days. Political correctness is one of them. That's really not going to describe me very well. Another one is tolerance. Should we tolerate less than truthfulness, respectfulness, and being honorable? The other phrase is manipulating the system. Now, where I come from, that is just another way of saying cheating. That's a hard word. But there are certain candidates for this election that are in violation of this policy because the mailing lists that they had were disseminated to San Juan Citizens Alliance. San Juan Citizens Alliance is most assuredly a third party. And it was most assuredly for the benefit of the candidates that did so to get elected and get funded, and most assuredly for the benefit of San Juan Citizens Alliance to get the candidates that they were endorsing and supporting financially elected. The bylaws and the consequences do not.
I'd ask that you get to the question. One of the things we want to try to do is provide everybody an opportunity to ask questions. So I would appreciate if you'd ask the question that you have.
The bylaws and the consequences, there are none, so I would ask that moving forward, that you would put some teeth into this, because there is no consequence for violating the policies of the elections and the campaigns for doing that. And I would say moving forward in your bylaws and in your policies that you need to have some consequence other than what is allowed. Attorney Denning, I think, is a recall by the membership after getting 1,000 names on a petition. Would that be correct?
Just to address this, so if there is a violation of the agreement that you read, then what that is that's a contract between the individual that receives the information and the co-op. And so if there is a breach of that agreement, then that would be a cause of action against the individual that had the breach. That's something that would need to be processed with the board, and the board would have to decide whether or not to bring a cause of action. If, as far as what the members could do, if the members believe that the individual breached the agreement or did something that would warrant a removal of that individual, then that would be a petition to recall the board member. And that is done through the bylaws, and it requires 1,000 signatures.
Thank you very much. Just in closing, if we're in the bylaws, it says that the directors, we are indemnifying the directors for anything, and if there is a director that would be willing to violate the policies to get elected, what would they be willing to violate that we would have to indemnify them for? Thank you for your time.
Are there any other questions from the floor? Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Chuck Williams. Been a member of LPEA for over 20 years, and I'm also a net metering customer. This is a question for Mr. Dryspring or any other member that, or board member that might have information. I appreciate the references to more transparency via the LPEA website, particularly in terms of overcoming the growth of misinformation. Has there been any discussion about making more effort to push accurate information via news feeds and social media such as Facebook and Twitter?
Chuck, first of all, thank you for your question and for being a member for 20 years. This last year, LPEA brought in a gentleman, Lonnie Tucker, from another co-op just outside of St. Louis, Missouri, to help us increase the amount of information that we push out through social media. So we now have a YouTube channel. If you guys haven't seen it, I'd really encourage you to go out and take a look at some of the videos. We try to answer a lot of questions that members have through our YouTube channel. Also on Facebook, Twitter, we are trying to provide more information. Now, I understood part of your question was misinformation, not just what channels of social media. We're trying to be more active in providing information because what we learned was we need to tell our story. We cannot always rely on either the politics of directors or local media to tell the story to our members that we need to be telling you. So I think that we recognize that one of the things that we've got to get better at are using the means of communication that we have at our disposal to talk. Now, Colorado Country Life, I mean, I couldn't be more proud of what LPEA was recognized for this last year. We won in all 4 categories and had the best overall newsletter. And that's really a testament to our employees and the fact that our members are reading and looking at that. So we don't just rely on one form. We do recognize that at times people say things that are not consistent with what we see. What we try to do is just tell the story, correct that whenever we can. I appreciate your comment.
Anyone else? We have several written questions, so yes, sir.
My name is Dave Peters. I'm an LPEA board member. My question is, will the LPEA board this year develop and consider approving a rate structure system that will end the subsidies for rooftop solar panel power purchases? And if so, when? You know, low-income LPEA members just can't afford to subsidize higher-income members who have the ability to install rooftop solar panels.
Dave, thank you for the question. So one of the things that Dan Harms, Dan is the manager of rates, technology, and energy policy, incredibly good at what he does. He's laid out a plan for the board to review our rate structure this year, because every year we're trying to identify what are the changes in rate structure that we need to see and experience in order to price this effectively for our members. So we're going to be going through a process this year. If you recall, last year Dan did some local workshops in the evening here in Durango to talk about the background of rate design, the issue that you brought up, which is the incentives or subsidies for solar net metering. Our board recently instructed the management team to come back and report that to the board on a monthly basis so the board can continue to monitor that. So I think it's in front of the board, it's an issue with which they want to deal, number one. Number two, I don't think, and Dan can walk to a microphone, Dan Harms can correct this, I don't think that that is entirely an issue with the rates. I think that part of the issue is the policy 117, which is a tri-state policy, and the projects that we've done in conjunction with that, and the purchase power agreements with that. I think part of that goes in. I do think that the net metering is what you said, and that is that for full credit, full retail credit for all energy produced is something I think every utility is identifying, something that we've got to start addressing. As we see more proliferation of solar from a rooftop standpoint, or really on a small scale for like a HOA like we saw at Southwest Horizons Ranch, I do think that we're going to have to see some type of a correction. Some of the concepts that we're working with, Dave, are to require all net metering to be on time of use. Now that can be controversial, and here's why. Some of the members that purchased their PD system did so based on the economics that they thought the rate. But one of the things the board doesn't guarantee that rates are going to be the same all the time. So we've got two issues out there that we're going to have to work through and understand the impact. One of them is the members that have PD systems and made decisions to invest in that and justified that based on what they would thought. And then the other is, how do we identify this pool of money, the $1 million that was reported, and the incentives, and begin the process of trying to either control or reduce or eliminate that? That's going to be some of the things we're going to work through. Dan, do you want to add anything to that? Okay, he said I did good. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Larry Zabras. I'm a co-op member. And I would like to ask Mr. McGinnis to elaborate on how he uses his position on the tri-state board to address issues and possibly move them in a position advantageous to LPEA on issues. You know, one of the big issues was the 5% cap on locally generated electricity. And so I'm wondering how he could use his position on the board to possibly move that in a favorable way.
No softballs, huh? Is this working?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you, before we get to the 5%, what I do now when I go to Tri-State, and this is really a challenging thing, is you're wearing what they used to call two different hats. I'm on the LPA board, I'm also on the Tri-State board. But what I do is when I go to Tri-State, you need to kind of understand a little bit about the governance of Tri-State. It's a 43-member board. That's a big board. So what they do is they have other subcommittees, and that's where a lot of work gets done before it goes to the full board. I go a day early to the board meeting, and they have what's called the executive committee subcommittee meeting, and I go to that one. I am not a member of that committee, but they do allow me to sit in there, and they also have allowed me to ask questions and make comments. And that really helps out, because that's when you can really put your foot forward to represent LPEA. And it also is a good way to build relationships with some of those directors. Then I sit on the External Affairs and Member Relations Board, and it's the same thing. They give me an audience. I am a member there, so I can do that. Normally, that committee finishes early, and then I go over to the Financial Committee if there's time before we start our regular board meeting. At that meeting, I have not had any input because I'm still really learning the sophistication of the financial part. So that's how I kind of go forward as far as putting in some comments. I also am building up relationships as best I can with many different members. And you'll find like members in these other 42 members that are thinking the same way you are in this subject or maybe that subject. And that's how you do it. Now let's talk about the 5% in a minute, because I get asked that a lot. And it's been a lot in the last couple months. So when we voted on the LPEA board to ask Tri-State to increase the 5%, I did vote in favor of that. I thought it was a very legitimate request. I had no idea I was going to be sitting on the Tri-State board and didn't even really think about the Tri-State side. Well, in a couple months after that, I was on the Tri-State board. And I had to do my due diligence, because this was my very first meeting, to deal with this 5% decision on what was going to be made. And what it basically came down to, I felt that I voted to keep the 5% at 5%. And I think it was a vote that was in the best interest of both LPEA and Tri-State. And the reason for this is you need to understand that 5% is an incentivized amount that incentivizes developers to develop these local renewable generations. Well, inside of Tri-State, if it's incentivized, that means that it is incentivized by all the members. And at the time that that vote was taken, the majority of members were not participating in the 5% projects. And what would happen is if you increase that 5%, it would increase the cost and put high pressure on the rates that Tri-State's going to have. So the majority of the members would pay more for something that they are not using. The minority get the benefit, and it's actually not the minority, it's the developer of these projects. So I do feel it was in the best interest of Tri-State. Now let's look at LPEA. It's the same thing. If there's pressure to increase those rates from Tri-State, those get passed on to LPEA. And then they get passed on to you on your electric bill to pay more. And one of the very things that really made me stand up and say, no, I want to keep it at 5%, is if I would have voted to increase that, to me that's like saying, I want to take the money out of your pocket and put it in this developer's pocket. 80% of the power we get from our 5% projects in our area, they are produced from for-profit companies. So I don't think it would be right to pull the money out of your pocket and put it in their pocket so they can make a bigger profit, or if they're losing money, that they'll lose yours before theirs. So, getting back to that, that's how I kind of approach it. That vote on the 5% I felt was in the best interest of both LPEA and Tri-State.
We're going to go to these written questions next, and then we're going to, if your question is not asked during the written questions, we'll come back to the audience again. But maybe we'll have them answered here. And I'm just trying to save time, not trying to cut anyone off. Nadine's going to read these questions.
All right, I'd like to start by saying we got quite a few questions about individuals and their accounts, and we're going to reach out to you individually for your questions. I also grouped them, and quite a few of the questions we received have already been asked, so I'm not going to re-ask those. And just to remind you that if you have questions that are not answered today, LPEA is always willing. Please call us and let us know. So here's the first question. When will the LPEA board create a policy directing all external communication to go through the public relations manager and direct all board members to the public relations and not to comment directly to the media.
So that's not a softball either. that's actually
Started with a good
big
one.
hard ball, and it's coming right at me. So LPEA actually has a policy, and I'm going to tell you something that we struggle with at LPEA, and you're going to understand this, all right? So people here are pretty vocal about what they think, right? It's called free speech, and we respect that. And just so you know, I struggle with the employees because they have strong opinions about what they think ought to be done and not done from a government standpoint, and nobody knows the business better than our employees in our organization. I love them because of that. But like our board, I've got employees that are split politically, and they express their own views. Now, we have a policy that says that the board will reference all communications, that no individual director is authorized to speak for the co-op. That's what the policy says, all right? So, and what we try to do is create a structure whereby directors, and actually I don't think I could keep people from expressing what their views were if I tried. It's extremely difficult. I kind of get the idea because I don't want individual directors speaking for the co-op, and that's something that we try to enforce. But you guys have seen either their letters or comments in local newspapers, and they're going to express what they think. LPEA looks at that big gray area called free speech, and while I would like for all of that to get filtered through our communications resource, it doesn't always. So how do I look at it? I don't think that there's a policy rewrite that I know of that's going to fix that, but I guarantee you we're talking about it, at the board level, and we're going to look for ways to try to strengthen that. But we also have an idea that a lot of this dialogue actually helps us. If you think about it, there's not really a problem hearing different opposing views. The question is, can we put that and homogenize that into something that makes a good decision for how it serves the members? So we do struggle with the issue of people saying what they think, and it coming across as representing LPEA. What I find myself doing, and I've done this, especially with individual directors, if an individual director says something that represents an LPEA position, no matter what disclaimer they offer, I find myself in the position of having to say that's just not LPEA's position. And I've done that. I'll continue to do that. Not where I want to be, but it is what we have to do sometimes. And I think we can respect people's differing opinions. One other thing I want to add, because Lori, I still don't have an answer to your question. For any question that we got in writing that we didn't answer, we're going to put the questions on our website along with the answers. If I don't have a response for you, I will put it on our website. Go ahead.
What is the LPEA board's position on subsidizing or providing incentives for renewables?
Okay, so let's, the question about renewable subsidies, and I think we've talked about that to a degree, but so my view about this is different. I've been here 4 years, and I look back over the last 10 years, and I see both Tri-State and LPEA having made decisions to try to ignite, incentivize the development, of renewables. And I think some people look at that and go, well, we don't want there to be any subsidies. But I'm going to tell you the truth is, whenever Tri-State initially adopted their policy 115 to develop renewables, from 2001 when they started that until 2007, there were no projects, all right? So Tri-State developed this policy, but here's the one thing they didn't have in their policy 115, and that was what are called the tables. This is somewhat controversial. The tables are the price that we pay to the developers of these projects. And it is more than Tri-State's avoided cost, all right? So in 2007, there was a project. It was a waste heat recovery. It was LPEA's, and that was the first project under that. And I would say that had we not had the tables that Tri-State had developed, I don't know that project would have gone forward, or if it had, LPA wouldn't be selling power to it. So there is an argument, I think the evidence would support, that incentives, subsidies, whatever you want to call them, have gone to establish and initiate some projects, in my opinion, that otherwise wouldn't occur. Now the question is, where are we today? Well, where we are is critical mass. We've seen the cost of solar, for example, decline. We've seen the cost of wind production decline. So now the question is, do we need the subsidies any longer for new projects? And I think, and by the way, there's no secrets here. The board's talking about this. We're having this debate and we're having this disagreement at the board level. If you come to the board meeting, you'll get to see the arguments. But what we recognize that we're going to have to do is that we're going to have to start looking at how we price that, because what we want to make sure is that everything that we do for the incremental price of electricity is lowering the cost of electricity. And you'll hear from all of our members enough on both sides that there should be or shouldn't be, subsidies. And we're not submitting this to a vote. What we're trying to recognize is what our mission is, all right? And our mission is, to deliver safe, affordable, reliable, and environmentally responsible, power. And those are the things that we focus on when we look at issues like subsidies. And these are not easy questions to answer. I think the board is going to continue to look at the issue of the subsidies on how we adopt rate design in the future.
There are 2 more questions, so keep your tummy rumbles down for just a little bit longer. What is La Plata Electric doing to prepare for a massive cyber attack?
The thing that I lose the sleep the most over are the things that could impact employees' lives. Our employees do dangerous work. We had a lineman that got hit in the mouth over in Pagosa Springs 2 weeks ago by something that fell off, and he didn't see it. Hit him in the mouth. Could have been way worse. And it's one of those hazards, and we're talking about it from a safety standpoint, but the thing that I really get concerned about are issues related to safety of employees. After that, what I lose sleep over, and this is the only other thing that I lose sleep over, are issues related to cybersecurity. You're just not plugged in at all if you're not reading or hearing about entities that are getting hacked. And for us in the electric utility industry, keeping a barrier between people with that intent and our SCADA system that controls remote devices from our operations, that's part of our distribution automation I talked about earlier. We don't want, and I've got grandkids who sometimes have a little too much time on their hand, and I'm so afraid that they could be one of the ones that would want to do something like that just because they think they could. So it's not always a malicious intent, but it's still our objective to create a barrier between us and that. And I'll tell you that LPEA actively has what I think is a very aggressive ISIT cybersecurity system. It's getting more stringent because we're having to come under compliance of some additional NERC responsibilities related to our transmission assets. Right now, I can walk into the dispatch office at LPEA. Probably this time next year, I'm not going to be able to walk in. It's going to be strictly limited to the people who can access our actual SCADA system. That's going to be additional standard that we have. Some of the other things, when you think about the radio access to our AMI data every meter and the ability that we have to remotely disconnect those meters, how sensitive is it for us to be able to create a barrier, and we have, but whatever we created today, one thing I can tell you, it won't be good enough next year. So one of the things that you have to be able to do is to identify all the threats that are occurring and learn from them. Not wanting to throw CDOT under the bus, but if some of y'all may know, you may not know, they had a cyber attack that shut down a lot of their operations. It was a phishing scam. And our ISIT department, they test the directors and all of us at LPEA by sending out false phishing scams to see if we're smart enough to click on that. One of the reasons why we're doing that is to identify, are people being suspicious enough of seeing the emails that are coming in? Our efforts towards cybersecurity are that granular, but I would never, I don't think I would ever say, yeah, what we're doing is good enough. I think we have to keep an edge to know that people adapt out in the world on those threats, and we have to constantly adapt too. And I'm just not going to tell you everything we do because it would all of a sudden make what we did obsolete. But if you really wanted somebody to geek out, talk to Drew or Tracy or Brad or some of the employees, and they will just wear you out with the geek talk on what they're doing.
This one is a technical one, so I'm going to throw it out there. What would be the peak load if most cars were electric? Will electric cars provide a viable storage, electric storage for LPEA?
Dan's coming this way, which is good. So while he's headed this way, I'm going to say that based on what we're hearing from presenters like Tesla that they're saying that they don't envision the car batteries being available for storage. Dan, is that still true?
To address the first part of the question on how that would impact our peak load, it's one of the famous answers, I guess, is it depends. When you're charging at home, you're probably going to be charging one of two ways. There's a level 1 charger which allows you just to plug straight into the wall at your house. Now with that, you're only charging at about 1.5 kilowatts, and so it could take up to 24 hours even to get a full charge in your vehicle, 17 to 24 hours. You're probably going to put about 4 miles of range into your vehicle for every hour that you charge with something you just plug into your wall. Now the next step beyond that is a level 2 charger, and with that you can put maybe 6 kW into your car and get 24 miles for every hour of charging. And so as far as how that would impact our peak load is depending on what kind of signals and what kind of incentives that we give our customers, because what we don't want to have happen is everybody to show up after work and plug their vehicle into their wall all at the same time right at 5:30 in the evening. That's when our system's already peaking. What we want to send you is that signal that says, well, plug your car in, but you can set up some programming in the car so it doesn't come on start charging until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. And that'll all help things work out more smoothly. We can try to provide that incentive and make that all happen very well. And in regards to the energy storage portion of that, as Mike had mentioned, there is a lot of talk about doing that. The downside is the more you use your battery back and forth, the less that battery is going to last. And so car manufacturers aren't real keen on you draining your battery, charging it up again, draining it again, charging it up again more than they anticipated, or they may not warrant the vehicle the way they originally said they would. But that possibility is certainly out there in the future, and we look forward to working with that.
Okay, now is there any other questions from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Carol McWilliams from District 2. This is in response to the concerns about subsidies for renewable energy. I'm wondering if there has been any calculation of what rates would be if they accurately reflected the externalized costs of fossil fuel extraction and power generation.
So, Carol, first of all, thanks for the question. I want to make sure I understand your question. That you were saying, had we done any calculations to understand the impact on the extraction of fossil fuels, like coal, versus the subsidies of renewables?
What rates would be if they reflect those externalized costs?
Okay, so, and this is something that I've had some dialogue with Dr. Lori Costello about regarding the extraction costs and the impact on health impacts as a result of carbon emissions. And I'll tell you that I do not understand or know enough about medical science to know. Dr. Costello has shared some articles with me that have helped me understand it. I do not believe I've seen any empirical data that would definitively explain what the cost of service is, in terms of the impact, in part because when our rates are designed, we just take our cost. We take the cost of poles, transformers, all of the capital costs, the $300 million that serves you. Then we take our linemen's labor costs, the computer systems, the cost of operating the district office. All of those things are actual costs that we take in and pay, or what go into our rates. So historically, utilities have not, to my knowledge, developed, a rate with, a defined cost impact on health, in part, I think, because it's an external cost. Now, I totally would recognize and respect that there's dialogue out there, about this. I just don't know what that empirical data is. And just trying to be candid with your question.
This is just a question for some clarity. I believe the gentleman who asked the first question, Dave Peters, said he was a LPEA board director, and I don't believe he is, so I just wanted to have that clarity.
No, you're correct. He's not an LPA director. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sarah Farrell. I am a member, and I just wanted to ask, so it's my understanding that the candidates that San Juan Citizens Alliance supported, Britt Bassett, Tim Wheeler, Jeff Mannix, and Kristen Skehan, they violated LPA's Policy 117 and federal laws and are currently under investigation by the state and federal authorities. And so my question is would this constitute an investigation by LPEA, or do we have to do a recall?
Sarah, first of all, thank you for the question. Unfortunately for me, I had a couple of members come into our office this week and raise, this issue. So what we did was we sat down and we looked at our policy 117, and now our policy 117 is how we release information to anybody. I mean, the policy directs me to provide something. If you came in and you said, I want a copy of your audit report, the policy says I have to give that to you. So there's some things, and the policy is available on our website, but there's some things I'm already authorized to provide you. There's some things I don't have the authority to provide. For example, member information. Now, there's a state law in Colorado, so we're talking about state statute that says electric cooperatives, that's all of us, so all 22 of us, are required to provide member lists to any director candidate that would run for office. Now, if we didn't have that state law requirement, I wouldn't provide anything off of a member's account for anybody. I've seen issues and concerns that people have with privacy. Nevertheless, there's a state statute that says that I have to provide that to a potential candidate for the board. So, LPA developed this policy many years ago to comply with state statute to provide any candidate a member. When you look at policy 117, Sarah, what it says is that those people that receive that data cannot provide it to a third party. So the question came up in my dialogue with members, what is a third party? Historically, director candidates, whether they're incumbent or non-incumbent, have gone to third parties. I'll mention some of them based in printing, the marketing department, there's others. We have never policed those. What we get is from every director candidate, whether incumbent or non-incumbent, they sign an affidavit that says they are responsible for that member list and the destruction or return of any data to LPA. So we get an affidavit, which means that were there to be something improper, my remedy is going to be through the director candidate. What we recognize is that we're probably going to have to bring some additional clarity to what is a third party. Let me say, first of all, that I asked for, and I have not seen any evidence that the San Juan Citizens Alliance got a copy of the member list. I've heard things, but I'm asking people when they share with me and they say, this has happened, I got to see it. I take any allegation about the misuse of member information seriously, and I've worked at co-ops like in Dallas where we had a director that misused a member list and we sued him. We got a temporary restraining order, we converted it to a permanent, we expelled him as a member and then removed him as a director. So where I've been at CoServe, we've had experience with dealing with issues, but we got to start with something that's concrete. Now, if somebody came and said to me, here's the evidence, the proof that I've got that the San Juan Citizens Alliance had, that member's data, then the question is you go to the policy and try to determine, are they a third party or are they not? Excuse me. Was that? Right. It's lunchtime. Well. So, what we're not going to have, though, is clarity within the policy as to whether or not San Juan Citizens Alliance is a third party. Because of the lack of definition, and I understand the concern of that, but the question is, if I had evidence, did it violate the law? First of all, I don't have evidence that said that happened, number one. Number two, then the question is going to be, and it's going to be a board question that we'll have to dialogue out, is whether or not that meets the definition of a third party. I don't think we exclude him or anybody else. And one of the things we're going to be doing is we're going to be revisiting policy 117, trying to bring some additional clarity to what a third party actually means.
What's the difference between to me, a printing company, that's what they do as a business. They're not, in my opinion, they are not considered a third party pursuant to policy 117. San Juan Citizens Alliance is not a printing company. They don't do anything. They take information and do what they want with it. That there's a big difference between a printing company and San Juan Citizens Alliance.
Let me repeat your question the best I can. The question is, what's the difference between, Basin Printing, who actually does this work, and that's part of the argument that I've heard. That you've got an entity that takes a political position. Sorry.
Okay, let me offer a solution. If your question did not get asked, I see some people waving their hands. You can't hear me?
Okay, what I think we should do is go ahead and break for lunch. If you want to know more detail about policy 117,
We need a motion to adjourn. I know you didn't hear that, but listen to what I have to say first. You're the back you can't hear, I'm sorry. I have a question that does not get answered. Give us the, write it down, give it to someone, email it to someone. We will post these questions and answers on the website.